Hey everyone, we are going to be correcting sentence 1 and 2 under set 11, but before we begin, I do want to make sure that you all have taken the time to write these two sentences down on a sheet of notebook paper. And so if you have not yet, will you please pause this video, write the sentences down, and then hit play when you're ready for the corrections. Okay, you should all have these sentences written down. Let's begin with our first sentence. Our sentence says, tattooing, the art of making designs on the face and body by inserting dye under the skin, is practiced in Egypt before 1300 BCE. In this sentence, I am looking for verb tense errors. I'm going to add commas to show that I have an appositive, and I have some capitalization errors as well. So first, let's take a look at our verb tense errors. So I know when I'm looking at verb tense errors, I'm looking for either past or present tense verbs. Now, the author of this sentence gave me a clue about whether or not I should be looking for past or present tense. The clue is 1300 BCE. Now, obviously, this takes place in the past. However, if we take a look at the verb of our sentence, we're using the present tense verb is. So I know that I have to change this error. So I'm going to cross out the word is, and I'm going to replace it with this word was. That will take care of my verb tense error. Next, let's take a look at our commas to show that we have an appositive. Now, an appositive is simply a noun phrase that renames another noun in the sentence. So if I'm looking for the main noun of our sentence, I'm kind of looking for the subject of the sentence. And so if I ask myself, what is the sentence about? I can easily answer that I know my sentence is about tattooing. This will point me in the direction of finding that appositive phrase that renames the noun tattooing. Also, another trick that you can use to find the appositive is listen for appropriate pausing. Pausing can indicate where commas belong. Listen again for pauses. Tattooing, the art of making designs on the face and body by inserting dye under the skin, was practiced in Egypt before 1300 BCE. Did you hear that pause? The pause happened right after tattooing, and it also happened after skin. That's a pretty big indication that I have an appositive here, and to show that appositive, I am going to mark it with those commas. I'm going to add my comma after tattooing and a comma after skin. That takes care of my commas to show that we have an appositive. And lastly, I'm also going to address some capitalization errors. So to do so, I'm going to quickly browse my sentence. I'm going to be looking for any proper nouns. Also, I'm going to be checking for abbreviations as well. So I know that tattooing has been capitalized correctly because it's the beginning of the sentence. And as I browse the rest of the sentence, I don't really see any other proper nouns until I get to that word Egypt. Egypt is proper, so it should be capitalized, and so that's correct as well. But by the time I get to the end of my sentence, I see that I have an abbreviation that has not been capitalized. So I'm going to fix that now. I'm going to get rid of my lowercase abbreviation, and I am going to add capitalized BCE, and I'm going to be sure that I keep those periods in between each letter. And that would take care of my capitalization errors for sentence 1. And there we have it. We have corrected sentence 1. Next, let's correct sentence 2. Our sentence says, Gone with the Wind, the only book ever written by Margaret Mitchell, was published in 1937 and sells 1,500,000 copies in its first year. It weighed 3 pounds, ran 1,037 pages, and sells for $3. In this sentence, I have to fix verb tense errors again. I also have a run-on sentence, which means that there's more than one sentence being smashed into one without the appropriate punctuation. I'm also going to add a comma to show that we have an appositive. We have some numbers that we're going to simplify. and we're going to add some punctuation to show that we have a title. So let's start with our verb errors. Again, I'm either going to be looking for past or present tense. This sentence also gives me a clue, and my clue is 1937, which again takes place in the past. However, I'm using the present tense sells in two different scenarios. So I am going to cross out those words, and I'm going to replace them with the past tense sold. That fixes my verb tense errors. Next, I have a run-on sentence. So this means that I have to read the sentence again to try to determine the end of the first sentence and the beginning of the second. This can usually be indicated by a longer pause. Try to listen for it. Gone with the Wind, the only book ever written by Margaret Mitchell, was published in 1937 and sold 1,500,000 copies in its first year. It weighed 3 pounds, ran 1,037 pages, and sold for $3. I don't know about you, but I heard a pause right after year and before the word it. So to fix this error, I actually have a couple of options. I can either add a period and capitalize the I in it, or I can just use a semicolon. Because using a semicolon is going to be a little bit easier for me, that's what I'm going to use. Adding that semicolon there would fix my run-on sentence. And now I'm going to look for my appositive so I can know where I'm going to add those commas. So again, to find that appositive, I want to look for where my subject is, because that can indicate where my commas go, as the following phrase might add additional information about that noun. The subject of my sentence I know is Gone with the Wind. If I look, I can see that there's a noun phrase afterwards that kind of gives me more information or a new name for that novel. Also, if we listen, we can hear that there's pauses there. So I know if I add those commas, the commas are going to be used correctly. I'll add a comma after wind and a comma after Mitchell. Adding those commas fixes my appositive. Now I still have numbers that I need to simplify, and I'm going to punctuate a title. So if you remember back a few months ago, we took notes on number rules. And one of our rules stated that when we have numbers, the simplest version is the best version to use. So if I'm looking, I know that I've used my date correctly. It's okay for me to use numerals. Because I'm counting the number of pages, it's also okay for me to use numerals here. But I think I could simplify this number as well as the last number that's used. So to simplify them, I'm going to get rid of this large number. And a simpler way to write it is 1.5 million. Then, to simplify my last number, I'm going to get rid of $3, and I'm going to replace it with the version that uses our $sign and numerals as well. That would fix my number errors. And lastly, I have to add punctuation to show that I have a title in my sentence. My title of the sentence is Gone with the Wind. Now, if I'm not really sure if I have to use quotation marks or underlining, I need to look for clues in the sentence. The author of the sentence did give me a clue when they wrote the word book. Book, I know, is a major work, and major works should always be underlined or in italics. Since we cannot italicize printed word, I can show that italics by underlining the phrase. Underlining Gone with the Wind fixes my punctuation error. Thanks for watching, everyone.